Hi, welcome back to the Sound of Science. Today we're going to be talking about AP Biology topic 4.5, feedback. This is going to be a super quick video. We're going to get through it really fast, and hopefully it will make sense at the end. The first thing that I want to discuss is homeostasis. And literally all homeostasis means is that an organism is able to maintain a stable internal environment. That's homeostasis. And how organisms maintain that internal environment has a couple of different mechanisms. But the fact is that organisms live in environments that are constantly changing. And because they are constantly changing, this is a really important component of living things. They all have an ideal range that they're trying to stay in, and whether it's temperature or glucose levels in the blood or pH of the blood, whatever it is, there is a range that they're trying to stay in. And feedback mechanisms are processes that help maintain homeostasis by increasing or decreasing a cell's response to an event. Negative feedback is more of the traditional process that we think of when we think about regulating a physiological process. If a system's disrupted, the negative feedback's job is to return the system back to its ideal point. And this can happen at both the molecular or the cellular level. So if you look at these arrows that I have here, you can see in the top arrow, the system's been disrupted. The negative feedback actually sends out signals due to that disruption that will help return the system back to where it needs to be, back to that ideal. Positive feedback, on the other hand, actually amplifies the signal. It moves the system further away from the ideal. This amplification occurs when the stimulus is further activated, which in turn initiates an additional response, causing the system to change. So you start off with a disruptive system. In a positive feedback situation, this further disrupts the system by creating a response to send it actually even further away from the ideal. Here is an example of negative feedback. And some of you have already studied this a little bit, but essentially, the way to read this model is to follow the colors. So let's say that I have high blood sugar. This is going to cause my pancreas to promote insulin release, which in turn, that insulin is going to help form glycogen. That's when you take glucose and you stick it with other glucoses to make a large starch, and it actually reduces your blood sugar level. Now, let's say that my blood sugar is low. If my blood sugar is low after this event, then it actually causes the pancreas to release glycogen. That glycogen then can be broken down, which is going to increase the glucose in the blood level, and it's going to raise your blood sugar. This is an example of negative feedback. Depending on how the system's been disrupted, it's actually this pancreas is going to work to bring it back in line where it needs to be. Now, with all the talk of homeostasis, positive feedback might seem like it doesn't really make sense. Why would an organism want to get even further out of whack, right? Well, positive feedback could be an example of when you have, for instance, fruit ripening. So when apples ripen, ethylene gas is produced and released. This gas, detected by nearby apples, actually will also cause them to ripen, and then they'll release more ethylene gas, which causes more apples to ripen, which releases more ethylene gas. And that is how you end up with a harvest of fruit all kind of at the same time. So in this case, positive feedback is being used to promote reproduction in apple trees. This is also why the phrase one bad apple will spoil the bunch actually kind of makes sense, because a bad apple that's overly ripened is producing a ton of ethylene gas, which will actually cause the other apples in the area to over ripen as well. All right, so this is actually an example that comes directly from College Board. I actually took it from their daily video because I wanted you guys to have a chance to look at this particular example, okay? Air is less dense at very high elevations, so less oxygen is available than in denser air at sea level. Based on the model in Figure 1, if a person travels from sea level to a high elevation location, which of the following correctly predicts the response to the decreased blood oxygen level? So, if you go through and you look at the answer choices, you're trying to figure out which one of these is the prediction of what's going to happen when you move into a low oxygen level. So, first, let's take a look at the model. Before I even look at the answer choices, let's look at the model. And the model says that in a low oxygen level, you are going to end up with erythropoietin secretion from your kidneys. This is going to cause erythrocyte production in your bone marrow. If you find yourself in a high oxygen level, it's actually going to inhibit the erythropoietin secretion from your kidneys, which will actually reduce the erythrocyte production in bone marrow. Okay, so this is a feedback system. And to me, because it's not amplifying, what type of system is this? This would be an example of negative feedback. It's trying to bring the blood oxygen level back to where it belongs. So if we read the answer choices, which one of these is the appropriate prediction based on this model? More erythropoietin will be secreted from the kidneys, decreasing the production of erythrocytes. More erythropoietin will be secreted from the kidneys, increasing production of erythrocytes. Less erythropoietin will be secreted from the kidneys, decreasing the production of erythrocytes, and less erythropoietin will be secreted from the kidneys, increasing the production of erythrocytes. So it seems to me our answer choices here are really based on, are we going to produce more erythropoietin, or are we going to, or I'm sorry, are we going to secrete more erythropoietin, or are we going to secrete less erythropoietin? And then what is going to be the result of that action? So according to our model, low oxygen levels in the blood causes an increase in erythropoietin secretion from the kidneys. So we know automatically that C and D are out because they both say that there's going to be less secretion. So it has to be A or B. And an increase in erythropoietin secretion, according to this model, if we follow the arrows, causes increased erythrocyte production in bone marrow. So if we look at A, it says decreasing the production of erythrocytes. That's wrong. So it has to be B. More erythropoietin will be secreted from the kidneys, increasing production of erythrocytes. And that's the end of our video. So as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time on The Sound of Science.